NBA postseason basketball is finally here, and I am more excited than ever. This season has been a little bit up and down. There's been stretches of great basketball. There's been stretches of unnecessary injury-filled games that have kind of taken me away from the game. But all in all, I am an NBA fan, and anytime I get to watch some postseason basketball, I'm excited and happy. So that's what we got here today. This is the NBA Play-In Tournament. If you aren't familiar with it, here's a little bit of a rundown. It's just giving an opportunity to teams that, might not make that 8 seed, like the 9 and 10 seed, to make their way into the tournament. It is a difficult process. It involves a lot of, win or go home situations, especially for the 10 and 9 seeds. That game on both the Western Conference game is the Memphis Grizzlies versus San Antonio Spurs. The Eastern Conference game of that is the Pacers versus the Hornets. The winner of that game, the 9 and 10 seed game, moves on to play the loser of the 7 and 8 seed game. And that right there is another win or go home situation. The winner of that game goes on to play the 1 seed, and it just becomes more difficult as they progress through the playoffs. It's a tough process, and this year I don't necessarily expect either on the Western or Eastern Conference side of things, either the 9 or 10 seed to advance further than, maybe getting into the playoffs. But with that said, it broadens the opportunity for some upsets, and it allows us to see these young players progress. These games are extremely important, and they're really one-or-done situations, especially for, like I said, the 9 and 10 seeds. So Ja Morant, or LaMelo Ball for the Hornets, or DeJounte Murray for the Spurs, all these young, talented players have a national stage to broadcast their talent in an important game, show if they're clutch or not, show if they have what it takes to be the guy on their team. And this is perfect. This is a perfect way to showcase their skills. I wasn't always a fan of the NBA Play-In Tournament. I thought that it kind of made the regular season a little less important because there's already 82 games in a season, 72 games this season. But when there's so many games, not every game is, must-watch TV because, they might. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if you go 41 and 41 or 42 and 40. It's just, it doesn't necessarily add too much of a suspense. Like, just when it comes to watching the NFL, where it's every game is as important as the last. This season for the NBA, it was a little more important because there was less games, but I won't bore you with all that. Today I want to talk about some of the matchups, just give my thoughts on what I think might happen. I'm not going to make this a prediction video per se. I'll save that for the actual NBA playoffs, but I'll give my thoughts on what I think might happen, and if I do think that, players like Ja Morant can step up and lead their team to a win. So, with that said, I'm going to get into the first matchup for me, the Western Conference. I'm going to go with Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. So, this game is going to be pretty entertaining. I'm excited, mostly because I have a good friend who's a big Memphis Grizzlies fan. He talks them up all the time and, makes them seem like the best team in the NBA. He makes Jonas Valanciunas seem like an MVP candidate. A little bit of bias, but other than that, I do think that the Grizzlies are very good. I think that they have a real good shot to beat San Antonio, who is 2-10 in their past 12 games. They've been pretty awful recently, San Antonio has, but the Grizzlies went on a pretty nice win streak. They did lose to the Warriors just recently. I think a lot of that had to do with the referees from what I saw on social media and what my friends were saying. But to put that aside, if you just look at this from a matchup perspective, I think that, the Grizzlies are the more talented team. But I think that the Spurs are much better coached. Greg Popovich, one of the best coaches of all time, he does a good job of handling these situations. The Spurs are a very young team, but they have a really good veteran in DeMar DeRozan leading the way. So I think it's going to be a little bit up in the air, but I'm going to have to say that I think the Grizzlies pull this off. But there's 2 players that are extremely important for this Grizzlies team that need to step up right now. Jaren Jackson Jr., who has played sparingly throughout the season, he's going to have to step up right now. He hasn't been the guy that, averaging 20 points per game. Granted, he's not played many games, but this is what the Grizzlies have been waiting for all season. They need him to step up now. They cannot wait any longer for him. And I think this is the game that we're going to see a Jaren Jackson Jr. pop off, as long as he doesn't, foul out. That's a big problem he has. Dillon Brooks also has a pretty big problem with fouling, but he's a huge bump energy-wise. He's an incredible defensive player. Offensively, he can be very hit or miss, but, as long as he's there for the defense and the energy boost, he's one of their most important players. Plus, Ja Morant, obviously. On the Spurs side of things, you've got, DeMar DeRozan. Their bigs aren't the best in the NBA, but I think Jakob Poeltl is a pretty good player, and Drew Eubanks isn't half bad either. Plus, they've got really young talent like Keldon Johnson, Derek White, Lonnie Walker, a ton of guys that can get you buckets. I don't think that the Spurs are more talented than the Grizzlies. I don't think that they're a better team than the Grizzlies. But if they play their cards right and one or two of their scorers comes off hot, it's going to be a pretty entertaining game, I think. But with that said, I don't think that they can beat the Grizzlies, and that's why I think they'll probably lose. So, next up, this next game I'm going to talk about was probably it's the biggest game out here. Even though it's not a winner or loser goes home. This isn't a playoff game per se. This game decides who plays the 1 seed, the Jazz, and who plays the 2 seed, the Suns. So, it's the Lakers versus the Warriors. And this game is going to come down to, are the Lakers going to be able to put everything together like that? LeBron's back. AD's back. They're basically healthy for the most part. Plus, on the other side of the court, you've got Steph Curry, scoring title this season. He's played incredibly well. I haven't seen Steph Curry play this well since, the glory days of the Warriors. He's playing some of the best basketball of his career, and he's 33 years old. With that said, I don't know. This is a tough game to talk about just because you've got LeBron on one end of the spectrum, Anthony Davis as well. But Steph Curry has been just electric. Steph Curry can do anything you need him to do offensively. And, it's so tough. I don't really want to pick right now. I don't know. It's kind of tough. I'll probably end up going Lakers win just because they have AD and Bron back and they're actually playing for something. So Bron's going to turn it on, of course, and Anthony Davis is going to be Anthony Davis as long as he doesn't choke, which I don't think he will. Draymond's going to have to step up huge if they want even a chance. The Warriors need him to be the defensive guy he used to be. Can he do it? It's a little up in the air. He's pretty old. He hasn't been all that this season, but he still does have some good basketball in him. So, there's a lot of questions. Jordan Poole has been great for the Warriors as well. So, Steph's going to carry most of the offensive load, 90% of it. But they do have players that can help. Andrew Wiggins has been really good this season. Jordan Poole has been really good this season. Kelly Oubre not going to play, so he's a little bit out of the question. But it's going to come down to Steph versus LeBron and AD, and I think that LeBron and AD probably win in that situation. That's when it gets interesting for me. I want to see who's going to play, the Jazz or the Suns. So I don't think that either the Lakers or the Warriors would lose to the Grizzlies. So that's why I'm saying that this is kind of a battle for who plays the Suns and who plays the Jazz. As I just said, I think that the Suns will probably end up playing the Lakers, and I think the Warriors will probably end up playing the Jazz. Who knows what is better for either team? Donovan Mitchell is supposed to come back by the time that the postseason arrives, May 22nd. So I don't know if he's going to be able to come back and make an immediate impact on the Jazz, just because, this team's been pretty good without him. The Jazz have been pretty good without Donovan Mitchell. Mike Conley's been out too, and they've been scoring like crazy and just playing great basketball. They clinched the 1 seed last night. So it's really tough to say what I think here, but I do have a lot of faith in the Lakers, and I think that they are still the team that just won a championship last year. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the East. I don't want to stay in the West too long. The East isn't quite as interesting as the West from a play-in perspective, but there are a few good matchups. the Pacers playing the Hornets is the 9 and 10 seed game, and while I think that, this is an okay game, I'm not as excited to watch this game as any of these other games that I just spoke about. I do think that the Charlotte Hornets have a good chance to win this. Granted, Charlotte does not have a big that's capable of stopping Sabonis, so it's going to kind of be, can Sabonis stop himself? But it's a little speculative, He could have a great game and he could pop off. I would love the Charlotte Hornets to win this game. I think everybody is rooting for them. I don't know, unless you're a Pacers fan, obviously, but most people who don't really have a say for either team probably want the Hornets to win just because they're more likable. LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Cody Zeller, Miles Bridges, they just have a really entertaining team. They remind me of the 2017-2018 Nets with like D'Lo and all of them. So that game's going to be pretty cool. I'm just not as electrified as I am for like Lakers, Warriors, or Boston, Washington, which is up next. So Boston versus the Wizards. This game is tough just because, Boston just lost Jaylen Brown for the season. Morale is low. Jason Tatum's going to have to carry. And the Wizards, they've got Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, who have both been playing out of their minds recently. With that said, the Wizards lost a couple key games the past couple days when it comes to getting into the 8th seed. It was honestly a little bit, if they had lost a couple more games, the Bulls had a real shot to take their spot in the play-in because they had the tiebreaker. So, with that said, I think that the Wizards have a really good chance of beating the Celtics, but this is a really, really close game. It's really close because they're going to have Brad drop 30, 40, 50 because they don't have a bench. The Wizards don't have a bench. The Celtics don't have much of a bench either, but they do have a lot of scoring. Evan Fournier's been there. They've got Tatum, obviously. They just lost Jaylen Brown, which is a huge hit scoring-wise, but if Kemba Walker hits his shots, they've got replacements. Not as good as Jaylen Brown. That's why I don't think they're going to get very far in the playoffs in general, but they do have replacements. And at the end of the day, I think that the Celtics are a better team overall. But I don't think the Celtics are going to advance too far in the playoffs. So it's a little weird to say, but I'll probably take the Celtics here. And the Celtics winning puts them against Brooklyn, which, that's basically an automatic loss just because the Nets are. I think the Sixers have a good chance of, making that somewhat of a series, but Harden, Kyrie, Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant, it's tough to say. But that's for another video. That's the play-in tournament we've got right now. This is a little bit of a preview video. If you're interested to see what I talk about after these games, my post-game reactions, I'm going to try my best to make one for every game of the play-in and the playoffs, at least series-wise. So it's going to get a little hectic on the AP Sports channel if I can stay consistent. So with that said, please do like and subscribe if you enjoy. It helps us a ton. My name is Archer. This is AP Sports, and thank you for watching. Peace.